Yo, YouTubers. Alright, I'm still testing this, the open broadcast source video thing, which I strongly recommend you download and get it, guys, because it's really useful and it's quite good for putting videos together. But I'm just still practicing with some stuff. I'm just going to do a little short clip now, just a couple of the older clips I put up before. And the clip I was looking for of me, the thing I captured by accident on camera, in proportion to the photos of the Nazi craft that I found on YouTube, with the rare photograph of that strange craft, and I've managed to get the clip together. And I'm just gonna doodle for a bit, just say a couple of things. That, like I say, this is just a test as well. This isn't the full speech. I will be doing a full speech soon. I'm just getting used to all this stuff, guys, and I've got another computer. Actually, this is quite a laptop, and the processor speed is really slow. It's quite a, it's only a small Intel chip in it, kind of thing, so it's not very fast for this kind of stuff. So what I'm doing at the moment is just going to put a short clip up in relevance to the thing I was talking about, the thing I captured on film. And what I've managed to do is get it in. I'll show you the clip now anyway. Before I do it, I just want to make a couple of notes and just test this drawing function thingy majig. Right, so just got to shrink my screen and move things around a bit. Yeah, I am in the process of just testing all my equipment and recording at the moment anyway, and what I basically want to show, if I can, is like what people have to bear in mind, right, guys? You know the way we have like phases of the moon, we're all used to seeing like, the new moon, and then the little tiny little bit of light appears and that, like, and then over the next couple of days the phases go right across, and then it starts again, right? And what people have to bear in mind, I'll just draw like I'm just doing a picture here. Like, what people need to bear in mind, imagine that's the moon, right? I know this, I'm just doing this quickly, so it's not going to be precise. What people need to bear in mind, that the moon is always permanently 50-50. What I mean by that is it's always 50-50, right? At some point, depending on the angle you're at, say you were God walking around in space, you could literally stand at a position where you can see the moon like that all the time, right? A half moon, what we call a half moon. It's always like that. The light is always hitting it one side and the other side 50-50. And in the Bible, God actually describes it. He says, and God separated the light from the darkness, and saw that the light was good and the darkness was not. Right? He's emphasizing, telling us that, the blackness of space and all the those kinds of factors, it's only a shadow, guys, you get me? It's only a shadow, like what I'm saying in an earlier video about the blind spot, right? And that's basically what it is, you see, this point where, you've always got, let's see if I can, I'll just get the pencil back on. I'm trying to make this as interesting as possible. You've always got this point here of the extreme, this bit where the light is hitting the moon at its fullest, right? So say like the equatorial, like on Earth, it's the equator, isn't it? Where it's like really hot at the centre, because it's the point nearest the sun. This little bit here, this little arc. And obviously on the other side, you have always got that point of absolute darkness, cold, and that's the point the blind spot itself. You know, when the astronauts say they were going around the moon, and when they were going around the far side of the moon, and it's very important, guys, that you understand that they did actually go to the moon. I'm not saying they were heroes or anything like that. I'm just saying it's really interesting, right? So that point, that opposite point, you know what the Chinese call yin and yang, and the opposing forces of light and darkness, up and down, left and right, big or small. Life would be very boring without those opposing forces, guys, really. It'd be like playing chess alone all day and night, wouldn't it? Or, you know, there's no competition or whatever. And God actually tells us, he gives us a tip in the beginning of the Bible, and he says, he separated the darkness from the light and saw that the light was good and the darkness was bad, or the darkness was definitely not good, right? And we can't do this on Earth. The actual Earth can't, because we've got the atmosphere and it sprays the light around. There's all kinds of little miraculous elements to sunlight and ultraviolet light that God has put all the physics into and so forth. But on the moon, it's a different story completely. We've always got this, you know, contrast of blackness and whiteness, and that's where the Freemasons, you know, the famous, I'm going to be putting illustrations in the full speech later on, right? I'm just trying to make a quick point in this little video, and I'm testing my recording and stuff, like, see how it, you know, see if I ever can get it together. But anyway, I'll try and make it brief, because it might not record. It didn't, you know, I've done this a couple of times and failed, like, but anyway, you got that, you see where I'm getting at, like, extreme points of light and extreme points of darkness. They're the two little dots on the yin yang, you understand? And you could be like, say in the zodiac, you got Taurus and Scorpio are exactly opposites, and it never changes. It's like a compass. You know, when you look at a compass, there's no middle in between. There's only north and south. There's one needle, and it goes like that and floats around, and the points will always be opposite. Like 12 o'clock is to 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock is to 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock is to 3 o'clock. The light constantly keeps things moving, right? So when the astronauts did eventually go on the moon, none of them complained, guys. All the time they spent on the moon, they were immersed in that. You know, they made sure they were where the light was, you understand? They didn't land in the dark side. It would have been a bit of a, it'd been impossible really to design a suit or whatever to cope with that kind of stuff, but they managed to get the balance with the, you know, the cooling system and all that, right? So they were all in extreme light, and what did all the astronauts have in common? None of them really wanted to come back home, you know, especially the last mission, which was Apollo 17, which was, you know, Cernan and Harrison Schmitt had walked on the moon. And they were there for nearly 3 whole Earth days, if you know what I mean. It was like the longest duration. And they didn't actually want to leave. You can understand, you know, when you go on a mission or you do a job and you go like, oh, I can't wait to get home, you know what I mean? But in the case of them, why weren't they like panicking to get off there, you know, because they were guaranteed the sunlight was going to stay on, because it takes a while for the phase to move around, doesn't it? It's not like the Earth. Bearing in mind, on the opposite side, there's always that point of extreme blackness and darkness and cold, occultism, the blind spot. And it's like a peak. And the astronauts said when they were flying round the moon in orbit, they were hearing strange music. Which, not over the speakers, not over the, you know, electronically, they were hearing these crazy frequencies, right? It's all the occultism, it's all the magic and everything, all, you know, it's that point where the wind, you know, the solar wind is like, oh, whack, it's hitting the moon itself, and it's creating this little vortex at the far side, which is the pinpoint, it's the little tiny, you know, when there's a total eclipse, and this is where I'm going to, you know, bring into these little pictures or these little clips. When there's a total eclipse, the shadow of the moon actually goes across the Earth, doesn't it? You know, it's actually an actual little black dot that, you know, if you were in space looking down at the Earth and say, you know, you were looking at the exact spot where the eclipse was happening, you would see that little black shadow moving along, right? And what's really interesting, right, guys, I'm going to go into, this is another point, right? Black and white. It's always there. That 50-50 is never gone, guys. It's always, there's no such thing as a full moon where it's like completely immersed in light or completely immersed in darkness. There's only the sun in the solar system that stays light continuously. Do you know what I mean? It's like all sides of it are completely illuminated. So obviously, say we're on this side of the moon, we're looking at that side of the moon and it's a half moon. Obviously, if you could stand on the opposite side of the moon and look straight back, from exactly the same point where you're looking at split, the opposite side, you'd be seeing, you know, to us, the light side is on the left and the dark side is on the right. If you were standing the other side, it would be opposite, right? Which would give us that, you know, what the Freemasons, you know, kind of like, they're very fond of. I'm just doing a basic thing here where we'll, so you can, what we get, like, they're obsessed with the checkered boards, aren't they, guys? Yeah, right? So, knowing that the moon is, knowing that the light is constantly moving, it never stops, we get this. The Harlequin effect, the checkered board, the contrast between the light and the darkness constantly battling. But there's the point where they meet, and that's what the Freemasons have kind of pinpointed with their, you know, their columns of their Boaz and Yakim, you know, what they call Boaz and Yakim. Those columns represent light and darkness, and they can get on. We can talk to a bad guy in the street and have a nice conversation, or we can have a fight with them and then a really nasty piece of work and we have a scrap. And that balances those Harlequin, you know, the thing between the blackness and the whiteness, so to speak, which is darkness and light, really, guys, yeah. And then you've got things like magnitude, you know, say, for example, like the first time I ever done a gig, you know, a show in a rock band in a club, I was amazed when the spotlight was shining on us and we were on, there was a, you know, like 100 and odd people watching, but I couldn't see a single person unless they came right up to the stage, and I was like standing there playing my guitar, singing, just looking at this spotlight at the back of the room, and all the audience were completely invisible. It was a bit of an eye-opener for me, guys, where I was thinking, I can't even see a single face, apart from the couple of lads that were like dancing and coming towards the stage, if you know what I mean. But it was like this black. And that's the magnitude, because the light is so bright, it blinds us, yeah. And in space, everyone thinks the space is black. It's not. It's transparent. It's completely see-through. The vacuum of space is just like water. It's completely transparent. It's only the shadows themselves that create the illusion of blackness and darkness, right? So that's where the magic comes in. That's where, like, the Freemasons step in. And they've got their hocus pocus and secret societies and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, now an interesting note, guys, before I played the couple of clips that I wanted to show. When I filmed this partial eclipse, remember there was a total eclipse in 1999 in Cornwall, right, guys? And if you were in Cornwall, you would have seen the complete, you know, the Bailey's beads, the absolute total eclipse, but they didn't see a thing in Cornwall, guys. You know, chances of chances, you know, England, typical British weather, it was all clouded up. But I didn't go to Cornwall, I couldn't afford to, I couldn't have afforded the travel there. And, you know, you literally had to book a place to stay in advance if you wanted to go and see that eclipse in England. We had no chance, do you understand? I believe the next one's in America, guys. You know, actually, I've got a couple of viewers in America, and you're going to be like blessed with a total eclipse soon, aren't you? In the next couple of years or so. I'm not sure when. Like, it's going to go right across America, like. But anyway, no one in Cornwall seen it, which I thought was really interesting. It's like God put the clouds there, and you couldn't see it. I was sitting in my back garden in Birkenhead, just looking up at it, like, it wasn't total, but it was near enough, watching the moon go in front of the sun. And I've seen some banal things in the sunlight and stuff, do you get me? I've actually seen some crazy stuff, which I'll go into in my speech later on, you know, when I do the full speech. But what's interesting is, before that total eclipse over Cornwall, where it was in totality over Cornwall, which was 1999, before that, the last eclipse over Britain was actually 1926, I believe, or 1927. It was either 26 or 27. You can check it out. It was like a total eclipse, right? And you know the shadow, the bit like I'm saying, the little pinpoint, you know, just like, you know, amplifying this, like this little bit here, the pinpoint of the shadow. That was actually when it was at complete total, you know, the complete total eclipse was right in front of the sun and everything. The little pinpoint of the shadow, it was, you know, the River Mersey, what we call the River Mersey, which, you know, I live in Birkenhead, guys. I can get on a ferry boat and go across the Mersey to Liverpool, yeah? What's interesting is, during that total eclipse back in 1926 or whenever it was, the actual shadow, when it was at totality, was completely over the River Mersey. So one side of the shadow was just over Liverpool, and the other side of the shadow was just over Birkenhead in Liverpool, you know, on the Wirral. You know, the actual Mersey, the shadow actually went right across the River Mersey, guys, and it just sort of covered. And obviously it carried on moving as the eclipse continued. Everyone saw it. The clouds didn't, you know, block it off back then. I don't know. There's people who remember it and stuff, like. So, interesting note that, guys. The last time a total eclipse happened in Britain before the Cornwall or 1999 eclipse was the actual pinpoints. What I'm showing here, this like the the blind spot, the little spot, actually went right. If it was like if you'd imagine linking Birkenhead and Liverpool, a little black circle, a shadow that linked Liverpool and Birkenhead, right? And this is why there's such a focus. Remember, that's all before the war. Remember, it's 1920 something. That's before the Second World War. You know, all the occultists were been going bonkers on the Wirral or in Merseyside, you know, at the time. So I hope I've made a couple of interesting points here, guys. I'm not sure. Hang on, I'll just shrink this picture down so you can see the illustration I did there. Yeah, you know, when I did the Harlequin thing, right, what was making the point before, I didn't realise that was underneath me photograph, guys, as I was drawing it, but I drew a circle and just, you know what I'm saying, if you think of the shadow constantly spinning round, it's always 50-50, always permanently 50-50. People don't realise that, right, that it's always, it's pure, it's God's design, you know what I mean? It's all in the Book of Enoch and all kinds of stuff, you know. I'm gonna just put my photograph over this side so I can photograph my webcam. But anyway, I'm going to show the clip now, which is on my channel, that I actually filmed. It's actually on the channel, so you can watch it in full screen on your things and you can see the craft going past, right? Yeah. This is the clip anyway. Just sit back and watch this clip, and it's the actual clip what's on my channel, and this is what I filmed. I'm actually on the pier head here, guys. You know, Liverpool and Birkenhead ferry. It's called Woodside Ferry on our side of the river, and I'm filming a partial eclipse. Remember, guys, this is not a total eclipse. This is a partial eclipse, and by accident, when I was actually filming this, there's two clips I'm gonna show, so you can get a scale of how much I'm zoomed in, because the clip I put on my channel, I just put the actual clip. I didn't zoom back or show everyone where it was. There's no commentary or nothing. I just put it on and hope. I've hadn't had any feedback about it. Only a couple of people I know have said like, whoa, that's a bit of a crazy one, isn't it? I don't know what that is like. But I'm going to show the clip now. Right, I hope it comes up as it should. Yeah, I'm watching the bottom right corner. You see it go past there, and then I repeat it in slow motion. There it is. You can see it's like a delta shape. It looks like a hand glider, I suppose, but if you think I'm zoomed in there, that's the moon in front of the sun. I'm actually standing near the River Mersey. This was only last year, wasn't it? 2015. And you see, I show it so you can. I do a replay so you can clearly see this black thing flying past. It's just right. And the next clip I'll show in a minute. Right. Bottom right hand corner, you just normal speed now. You can see it's above the clouds, right, guys? I'll play it one more time just so you know. Right, that was slow motion. Now the chances of me catching that on film, guys, is a zillion to one, as you'll see in the next clip, where I show the proportion of the zoom, how far I'm zoomed in. I've actually got sunglasses over the lens there, by the way, guys. You know the little dots on the screen? I put a pair of sunglasses over them, mirrored sunglasses, one lens of a pair of sunglasses, so that it reflected the light, because it was I was just using a cheapy video camera, you know what I mean? And the screen on my camera is only tiny, the little monitor on the camera, so I didn't see that when I was filming it, guys. It was like 3 months later I discovered this, when I was going through the clips. I was going, I'll check my clips, what I oh man, alright, now this is what I think it looks like. This is on the other clip. There you can see 58, 59, right. These craft. See that spaceship there? The shape of it behind that dude's head. Scientists doing it. I showed that before, and I thought the sound should be on this as well, by the way, but I don't want to. That's like what I caught on film. They're the craft act. With me on that anyway. I'm actually standing up amazed. I was hoping it's not actually showed up,
It's completely gone.
Of me catching this. The chances of me catching this in the corner, in the right bottom right hand corner, what are the chances of me catching that on in the lens, guys? When in proportion, and bearing in mind the shadow of the moon is obviously prevalent in our direction, which is not a thing we're not used to seeing it, are we? Where the sun is actually behind the moon. Looks like a smiley face, doesn't it? Well, I'll go back to that clip again. I don't know where it went. It just went. It's oh yeah.
It's completely gone.
Into one. It took me 3 months to realise I'd caught that on camera because I've got loads of clips of that eclipse. You get me? Quite a few shots and various where I'm using different settings. So bearing in mind the illustration here, guys, it's always 50-50. You've got the Harlequin effect of the checkered squares of the chessboard, the infamous photograph that the Masons always, Freemasons always use. The illustration, it's always got that black and white squares on the floor, yeah? And the two pillars, those two pillars is darkness and light, and it only applies to the moon, guys. It's the occultist playground. It's where all the witches and warlocks all go bonkers. So anyway, I don't know how long this clip's been. I think it's long enough, innit, guys? It's still just another brief explanation. The actual entire speech, when I've got all the footage together and all my cameras and everything worked out and how I'm going to work it out, it'd probably be 3 hours long, I don't know, because it's such an amazing subject matter, and I've got loads of things to say that no one else has spotted, like in the previous video where I'm talking about the way that the Luciferians and so forth have a tendency, drugs, mediums, fire, dragons, all that stuff, yeah. I've gone into it, guys, and I've done a lot of research, and more than most anyway, and I've got a few crazy things to reveal. I don't want to say nothing just now, because I don't want to give the game away, but hopefully this has compelled you a little bit more, guys, for when I do get things sorted. And I would love to hear your comments on what you think that spaceship is, and am I right? Does it's just uncanny, isn't it? That spaceship looks like that. Like, I've never seen that one before. That's a very rare photograph. I only found that in that particular video on YouTube, guys. I've never seen it anywhere. And if you watch that video, you can see the title in the corner, something Nephilim or whatever. You'll see it's only a brief second. It's like this. When I seen it when I was filming it, it was like a brief second. You get me? Like, but that's the nearest craft I've seen. The only other thing it can possibly be, guys, is a hang glider, right? But I can't imagine. Tell me what you think. Have I captured something? Is it a UFO? Is it a hang glider? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? Super hang glider? I don't know. It's going too fast. It's like it's got a connection to the far side of the moon, if you know what I mean. If it happens to appear during an eclipse, only partial where I was, but you know, it's still the dark side of the moon, isn't it, facing us, guys? Alright, anyway, this is a test. I am actually still experimenting with the recording equipment and that. This will take me about an hour to upload, by the way, guys. I need to change my broadband speed and all kinds of stuff so I can get videos out quicker. That's the whole point. I'm working on my graphics card and all that kind of stuff, and trying so I can really get some professional vids together and very interesting, and live streaming, guys. I'm working on live streaming so we can have some live debates. You can actually ask me questions while I'm online, which would be very interesting. So I'm boosting all my broadband speeds and everything to try and get this sorted. And one of my friends out there in America, he asked me if I can do some more about music, which I will be. I'll be doing my own versions of guitar lessons, guys. The cheap budget way to make your own records kind of thing, and how to play guitar really fast and, you know, simple but effective, if it's possible. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you're interested in these